Next technique that we're going to be looking at right now is going to be the stipple and dot density. Now, obviously, I've used monochromatic, complementary, analogous, split complementary, so now I'm going to be using triadic. Triadic color scheme, in my opinion, is one of the most difficult ones to use. I'm not really a big, huge fan of it. However, it is a color scheme that is used, and so we're definitely going to practice it. Okay, just like with all the other color scheme or all the other techniques that we've done, okay, we're using red as our main color, so we're going to do the same thing here. We're using red for our sphere, just like we did on all these, so we're going to be doing that here as well. Difference now is that we're going to be using a stipple technique. Stipple, also known as dot density, is pretty simple. Okay, it's basically dots. So if you look at this, I'm not coming in here straight up and down. I'm at a slight angle. The dots stay nice and tight together. They're going to create a darker value, a fuller value, because they are tight together. Okay, I like to rotate the oil pastel as I do this as well. Okay, just like with the other techniques, that helps me maintain a fairly consistent size of dot, but it doesn't have to be the exact same size. But notice that they tend to be little dots. They're not little slashes. If they're little slashes, that's now being hatching. Okay, so you want to make sure that you keep these little dots. Now, the next thing is I'm going to choose one going to be my main color of support, and then my other one is going to be my secondary support. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go with the blue, okay? And the blue I like to use just primarily because it tends to create a violet when I use it with the red, and violet tends to be a little bit darker than orange, which is what you get when you mix yellow and red, obviously. I'm going to start to build that up. Okay. Separating the dots as I come across. Now this one does take time. Okay, so you just have to be patient. Alright. And you get the idea, right? As I start to build this up, I'm going to be putting a little bit more pressure, keeping my dots fairly closer together than they were before, and that starts to build up the veil, starts to mix in the colors, and it starts to create the veil that I'm looking for. Remember, I'm not necessarily trying to change the red to a violet. I'm not trying to change the hue, but rather I'm trying to change the value and the saturation or the intensity of the color via these color schemes. I'm also creating textures using these different techniques. So you'll notice it's starting to get a little bit darker. Okay, I'm going to throw in a little bit more blue in here so I can start to darken it a little bit more. You have to be careful that you don't add too much of this the support color, the darkening color, because then you actually change the hue. So you just have to be careful that you don't necessarily go with like a 50-50 ratio. Alright, if I want to go a little bit darker, I could actually include a little bit of yellow. Just a little bit. Like I said, this is the secondary support. So the primary support is going to be the blue. The yellow is the secondary support. And that's just to add just a little bit more of a darker value. Notice how I start in the middle with the red. Okay, I don't start in the dark area. The reason for that is I want to make sure that I'm going from red to darker red. So I'm not trying to change the color, and by doing it this way, I'm making sure that I'm pushing the red towards the dark side and building up my dots. Okay, if I go the opposite direction, I run the risk of actually pulling some of the blue into the middle of the value scale, so thus then making the middle darker, which I don't necessarily want to do. And you get the idea there in terms of going dark, and you can see how it starts to do that. Okay, before I go into the highlight area, I'm going to clean off my oil pastel again. Okay, just like I've been doing the other ones, so that way I don't dirty my highlight area. Okay, keep it, there we go. And then I come into here and I go the opposite direction. Notice I kind of like keep these a little bit further apart because I want to go a little bit lighter. So then I could come in here with my white. Notice I didn't clean off my white. Okay. Reason for that is it already has some red on it. So if you notice, it's leaving kind of like very light red marks already, and that kind of works to my advantage. So that's going to help me get this going a little bit faster. I start to separate and lessen my dots as I get towards the middle. Okay. And now I go right back in here with the red and I pull it all to the end. I think you get the idea with this, right? Okay, you get the idea. I'm not done with this, but you get the idea so that you can continue working. Next, I'm going to show you how to start to adding this to the adding this technique and color scheme into the circle to make it a sphere.